August, shortly after the Iraqis invaded Kuwait. And going even beyond the arrows that you see there, all the way to the west of Kuwait, there could be a flanking operation deep into Iraq designed to try to uproot the Republican Guard, the Iraqis' best soldiers, and that would be a very, very complicated, difficult maneuver, but it is one that we are told here has been rehearsed, has been practiced repeatedly over these past several weeks. Certainly a lot of this game plan will not only involve the U.S. There are British troops in place, French troops, Egyptian, Syrian, and there are plenty of Saudi ground troops as well. And for more on what we can expect from Saudi Arabia, let's go to my colleague in Saudi Arabia, Charles Jaco.
Saudi Arabia's army has already been tested in battle. It's fought to free the Saudi town of Khafji from Iraqi troops. That's the first combat action for the Saudis in modern times. To many analysts, the untested Saudi army is ineffective despite the billions of petrodollars spent on it.
They spent tens of billions of dollars acquiring equipment of various kinds. But the bottom line is they never really expected to have to fight with it. It was an army that was intended to project an image of power, but not one that was actually designed to fight a real war.
One problem, manpower. Saudi Arabia only has 8 million people. Despite an upsurge in enlistment since the war started, there's always been a shortage of recruits. There are only 38,000 men on active duty in the Saudi army, with another 27,000 on inactive duty. There are 56,000 troops in the National Guard, but it has mostly been a home defense unit. Even the Saudis' top commander says his country's army has inadequate manpower.
I'm sure that, lesson learned by what happened in this area now. And yes, we are determined to make our armed forces bigger and better.
Another problem, retention. The Saudi army is all volunteer. Recruits sign up for 4 years at a relatively generous starting salary of $600 a month. They can re-enlist, but after re-enlistment, they're free to leave at any time. Then there's lack of experience. Saudi citizens, civilian or military, have had no experience with things like war or incoming missiles.
It's the first time that a lot of people have heard a shot fired.
Then there's
the side of your screen, his security helicopter. The television lights, of course, are off during this landing period so that the pilot of Marine One, the helicopter, won't be having any difficulties finding his 3 pads, one of which goes under each wheel when properly flown, and it never has not been properly flown. President Bush returning from Camp David with Secretary of State Baker, the Allied forces in the Gulf having launched the ground war against Iraqi forces holding Kuwait. The President has announced, the White House has announced that the President will speak to the nation in less than a half an hour from now, about 26 minutes from now, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And then at 10:30, we will be having a briefing from the Pentagon. Marine One blades are slowing down now, and perhaps Charles can hear me.
Yes, I hear you. I don't know whether you can hear me. I've never been able to outshout a helicopter. All right, all of the President's top advisors are gathered here, standing about 50, 60 feet from where I am, none of them in a mood to talk at this point. They're going to let the President make this announcement, but the National Security Advisor, the Vice President is here, the Chief of Staff. I can see the Vice President and Governor Sununu as well walking out towards the helicopter. A number of these people have been clustered here at the White House through the early hours of the evening, primarily in National Security Advisor Brent Scowcroft's office, as the first reports obviously came into them of what was going on in the Persian Gulf. And he presumably relaying those reports to the President up at Camp David, which is about 60 miles from here, up in the Catoctin Mountains of Maryland. It's about a 20-minute helicopter flight. The President and Secretary of State Baker went up there Friday afternoon. As you can see, there's the President now. The President was not just relaxing up at Camp David. He spent a good bit of the time on the phone In fact, in the hour prior to the noon deadline, he spoke with Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev having called President Bush to suggest that there was perhaps a last-minute possibility of merging the U.S. and Soviet plans for a withdrawal from Kuwait. Mr. Bush having told Mr. Gorbachev politely that that just was not going to happen, that the U.S. and its coalition partners were firm in their intention to carry out a ground war if, in fact, the Iraqis made no attempt to withdraw after the noon deadline. The assessment from here at the White House was that there was no action on the part of the Iraqis, and in fact, spokesman Marlin Fitz.
Good evening. Yesterday, after conferring with my senior national security advisors and following extensive consultations with our coalition partners, Saddam Hussein was given one last chance, set forth in very explicit terms to do what he should have done more than 6 months ago: withdraw from Kuwait without condition or further delay and comply fully with the resolutions passed by the United Nations Security Council. Regrettably, the noon deadline passed without the agreement of the government of Iraq to meet demands of United Nations Security Council Resolution 660, as set forth in the specific terms spelled out by the coalition, to withdraw unconditionally from Kuwait. To the contrary, what we have seen is a redoubling of Saddam Hussein's efforts to destroy completely Kuwait and its people. I have therefore directed General Norman Schwarzkopf, in conjunction with coalition forces, to use all forces available, including ground forces, to eject the Iraqi army from Kuwait. Once again, this was a decision made only after extensive consultations within our coalition partnership. The liberation of Kuwait has now entered a final phase. I have complete confidence in the ability of the coalition forces swiftly and decisively to accomplish their mission. Tonight, as this coalition of countries seeks to do that which is right and just, I ask only that all of you stop what you were doing and say a prayer for all the coalition forces, and especially for our men and women in uniform, who this very moment are risking their lives for their country and for all of us. May God bless and protect each and every one of them, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Well, we did not anticipate the president was going to stay any longer, and he has made it clear in the past that the war began 38 days ago, to be specific, 38 days and about 2 hours ago, and that this is a new phase in the war only, though, as the president said, the final phase of the liberation of Kuwait. He said that he expected it to be accomplished swiftly and decisively, and that he was confident. The swiftly and decisively may or may not be some indication of the level of confidence which the U.S. High Command, both military and political, has in the present situation on the ground. A little after 6 o'clock in the morning in Baghdad, the war in its fullest sense has now been underway for several hours, and first light has arrived in the Middle East, and so Iraqi and American forces are now engaging one another in the light of day. At the White House now, perhaps with some sense of the president's mood, our White House correspondent, Britt Hume. Yes, Britt.
Well, Peter, I was just going to remark that you're quite correct that his presentation here reflected a high degree of confidence that this could be brought about rather quickly. However, I think you'll probably agree that his mood and his tone reflected a certain gravity. He looked more grave to me than I've seen him in any announcement in this room, or indeed any of the announcements he's made on.
In tonight's broadcast that this is the third time that the president has sent troops into harm's way. Panama, the air war, and ground troops, but never in this administration or since World War II has there been a night like this. Dan?
Wyatt Andrews, you know, we can hardly imagine what it means to be at the front tonight, waiting for dawn and what tomorrow may bring. We do know many officers, because we've met them, whose anxieties about looking after their men won't let them sleep even when there is time to sleep. And we do know many combat GIs, because we've met a lot of them, young kids with the gray faces who have in a matter of weeks lost forever the essence of youth, what Eric Sevareid once called that wonderful feeling that their flesh can never die. Now they know better. They've seen the flames of artillery, felt the thump of mortars, and smelled the terrible black smoke from a Kuwait in flames. And they now know, all of them, that tomorrow may bring for them the orders to charge, to move forward into the unknown, as the orders have already been given to many of our troops at the front. Now, speaking of the black smoke over a Kuwait in flames, we have with us Captain Ahmad Al-Saba, a Kuwaiti. He flies a Mirage fighter. That's a French-made fighter for the Kuwaiti Air Force, and is a member of the Royal Al-Saba family. Captain, we appreciate you being with us. We want to mention that you've flown daily missions over Kuwait throughout the war, and your most recent mission over Kuwait was today. What did you see up there?
You know, as you know, the Kuwait Air Force had here started flying since 17th of January till today, and we're gonna go today for more than 30 missions inside of Kuwait. And last 2-3 days we've flown inside of our country. We saw all of our country being Saddam Hussein fire all the oil field in south area, and I can say in the south area more than 150 oil field. I saw it by myself and my friends, all the oil field being fired, and you see the smoke till here in Dhahran. And yesterday also he started to burn the oil field in the north of Kuwait area.
We're now told it's more than 200 oil installations have been set afire. Is the Kuwait theater, is it still what you pilots call target rich? Do you still see a lot of Iraqi targets to hit?
You know, the last week we didn't see a lot of targets inside of Kuwait, but as I mentioned before, that there is a lot of anti-aircraft inside of Kuwait city. They put all the artilleries above of the houses and the buildings facing to the sea.
Facing to the sea, as if they expected that marine amphibious attack.
Affirmative, that's accepted from the Marines. They will attack from the sea. That's why they put all the artilleries facing to the sea.
Very interesting. The Marines, of course, their basic air is the Harrier and also the F-18. You would agree that's a superior aircraft to the Mirage.
That's better aircraft more than the Mirage. You know, the main role for the Mirage is interceptor aircraft, and but we use it with the Kuwaiti Skyhawk. Now we'll go together to attack the Iraqi troops inside of Kuwait. Maybe from tomorrow or day after tomorrow we'll start to flying as cabin inside of Kuwait.
That very loud aircraft, of course, is the British Tornado.
The Tornado.
Very good aircraft, but the world's loudest combat aircraft. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Good luck to you, and I hope you will be back in your own country soon.
I hope with your help, with the American help. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Let's go back to Washington now, and United States Congressman, a lot of Americans will die also, quote, unquote. There's been some doubt as to how much direct contact any overseas ambassador for Iraq has had with Saddam Hussein and their own government in Baghdad. The widespread belief has been that the only embassy with direct contact with Baghdad has been the Iraqi embassy in Amman. Joining us now is Fuad Ajami, our Middle Eastern expert from Johns Hopkins University. Fuad, as you've watched this story...
Point of view, the United States didn't have the guts as he said on a number of occasions, to engage him in the land war. What does that tell us about his capacities? Anything?
Well, I think he really does not understand. It really does not